the closer we are to the work, then the easier it is that we can define what those guardrails are and apply some of the principles around responsible and ethical use of AI, ensuring that we have explainability of our reasoning and our responses. And I think as we've then worked together, we've come up with those patterns that then become more easily deployable. So I think if the control functions that govern those practices are outside of the work, it's going to be harder to get that done. When they're inside of the work and they're part of the squads or they're part of the teams that are trying to innovate, then we've had actually really good success. Slow at first, but really built up momentum.
We did start those guardrails outside the work, realized quickly that we needed to at least have it partially inside the work, to use the terms which I quite like, and built it together. So those foundational control layers around compliance, around security, they form those are the table stakes of AI projects now.
Privacy by design can be something that is baked right in the beginning. And those requirements should be actually baked into your user story if you want to, put this iteration goes out to the next phase, for example, and those privacy requirements should be there in your story and making sure that they're all tested and passed.
There is a reality challenge that there will not be always enough data, all comprehensive, inclusive data to train the models. I think that is a fact. Whether like how big, small your company is, what we need to be mindful is putting some controls in place to mitigate those risks.
We are more looking at how do we actually bolt on to existing business platforms, and that partnering with the vendor partners to help us to do that instead of spending cycles on our own internal LLMs. But a lot of pressure I'm putting back on the vendor side. Come to us with some mature options. We don't want to be your guinea pig. Don't test things on us. And just because it looks good on a marketing slide doesn't mean it's going to deliver what you're really promising us.
Data's everywhere. You have data in different silos, you have data in different systems. So we're using an agentic AI framework that actually would migrate data, rewrite code, whether it's SQL to PySpark, move that into the cloud, right, and get it ready, at least stage it there. So we're using actual agentic AI to drive the actual modernization. And what's great is that we're building it from the ground up, meaning all the controls, everything that's in there that needs to be in there, security first, is part of the agentic framework. We were able to migrate 30 years of legacy data, retire Palantir, all in 8 months. The roadmap was 24 months. We were able to rewrite code that would essentially take 13 weeks for one data feed to go from prem to cloud. We were able to do that in 4 hours, right? And reduce that dramatically, over like 75%.
You need to deploy so quickly. Otherwise, they're going to start going off the beaten path. So governance is so key. But this is one of the risks in balancing innovation and security is there are risks where you start to hear stories where people are going off the beaten path, and you've got to put those guardrails in and, rally the troops. But it's a balance.
What's really changing with AI, especially if you build it yourself internally, is the rapidity with which things could go wrong if you're not watching them. It used to take a while to mess things up with shadow IT. Now things can get messed up with shadow IT within a matter of days as opposed to a matter of months. So while the patterns are repeatable, that sort of speed is really one of the things that we have to keep an eye on, just because things can go south a lot more quickly.
How do we actually now pivot and be nimble and agile enough to actually deal with that change? And some of the changes will be happening as your shop sleeps through. And your shop could be totally different the next day. And then where does that change management controls fit into it? I think that's another thing that came in as part of the risk factors you were talking about.
As we enable this tooling, we actually have to use it to change how we do change management. These things, all of those functions, all of those guardrails need to be built into the process now, because the people, the traditional cabs, can't react fast enough, right? The people sitting around the table now don't have 3 days to assess a change and all the risk is X and Y and Z. Now all of that somehow has to be built in.